In the sterile, pressurized calm of the first-class cabin, Isabella Vance reviewed quarterly projections on a tablet thin as a pane of glass. Her world was one of calculated angles and polished surfaces, a reflection of the woman she had meticulously constructed, sharp, successful, and emotionally impenetrable. Her hands, perfectly manicured, moved across the screen with practiced efficiency. Miles below, in a small garage that smelled of oil and honest labor, Leo Martinez wiped his hands on a worn rag. The grease under his fingernails was a permanent feature, a testament to a life spent fixing what was broken. He was a man of tangible things, of pistons and wires, of problems that could be solved with the right tool and a patient touch. His greatest creation, however, was the delicate smile on his 7-year-old daughter's face as he handed her a sandwich. These two souls, one soaring in a fortress of wealth and the other grounded in a world of humble necessity, were about to collide at 30,000 feet. The journey began as it always did, with the quiet hum of the engines and the polite deference of the flight attendants. Leo and his daughter, Maya, were in coach, a rare treat funded by months of careful saving. Maya was clutching a crayon drawing of a rocket ship, her eyes wide with the magic of flight. Leo watched her, his heart a quiet ache of love and loss. He saw his late wife in the girl's inquisitive gaze. In first class, Isabella felt a flicker of annoyance as she made her way to the lavatory. Her path was momentarily blocked by Leo, who was leaning into the aisle to retrieve a fallen crayon for Maya. She saw his grease-stained hands, the worn fabric of his jacket, and a judgment, swift and cold, solidified in her mind. "Some people should really stick to the bus," she murmured, the words just loud enough for him to hear. Leo's shoulders tensed for a fraction of a second, but he didn't look up. He simply picked up the crayon, handed it to his daughter, and whispered, "Here you go, Starlight." The dismissal stung, but his world had taught him that true strength wasn't in reacting to contempt, but in shielding his child from it. Isabella returned to her seat, the brief, unpleasant encounter already fading. The world was full of men like that, unremarkable and out of place. She turned back to her numbers. Then, a violent shudder ripped through the aircraft, a brutal metallic scream that tore through the cabin's placid atmosphere. The plane lurched downwards, pinning passengers to their seats. Oxygen masks deployed, dangling like limp, yellow fruit. A moment of terrified silence was shattered by a cacophony of screams. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with a terror that transcended professionalism. "Mayday, mayday. We've had a catastrophic engine failure. Cabin depressurization. Both pilots are incapacitated." There was a choked sob, then a desperate, almost nonsensical plea that hung in the air like a ghost. Is there anyone on board with flight experience? My God, is there a fighter pilot on board?" Panic, raw and absolute, consumed the cabin. People were crying, praying. Isabella Vance, the woman who controlled a multi-billion-dollar aerospace empire, was frozen in her seat, her manicured hands gripping the armrests. Her empire, her wealth, her power, it all meant nothing. They were simply falling. But in the chaos, a single figure moved with impossible calm. Leo Martinez unbuckled his seatbelt. He kissed Maya's forehead, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. "Stay right here with the nice flight attendant, sweetie. Daddy has to go fix a bigger plane." He handed Maya's drawing to the terrified attendant next to them. "Please look after her." He moved down the aisle, his steps purposeful. A flight attendant tried to stop him, her face pale with fear. "Sir, you can't." Leo met her eyes, and in them, she saw not panic, but an ocean of resolve. "I can fly this plane," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Isabella watched, her mind struggling to process the scene. The mechanic, the man from the bus. He was walking toward the cockpit. He disappeared inside, and a moment later, a new voice filled the cabin, transmitted from the cockpit speakers. It was Leo's voice, but it was utterly transformed. Gone was the gentle father. In his place was a commander, his tone clipped, precise, and radiating an authority that silenced the chaos. "This is Leo Martinez. I have control of the aircraft. Cabin crew, secure the cabin. Passengers, remain calm and seated. He began rattling off a string of technical jargon, a language Isabella understood perfectly. He was assessing damage, rerouting power, diagnosing hydraulic failures with a speed and accuracy that was breathtaking. The plane, which had been in a terrifyingly steep descent, began to stabilize. The gut-wrenching fall eased into a controlled, shallow glide. He was not just flying the plane, he was wrestling it back from the brink of oblivion. Isabella listened, her disbelief turning to awe. This was not the knowledge of a hobbyist. This was the innate, instinctual command of an elite aviator, a master of the sky. On the ground, after an emergency landing that was textbook perfect despite a disabled engine and partial hydraulic failure, Leo was met not with fanfare, but with a swarm of federal investigators. He was a hero, but he was also an unknown quantity. As he was led away for debriefing, he passed Isabella. Their eyes met. His were weary but calm. Hers were wide with a universe of unasked questions. The grease was still under his nails, but she no longer saw it as a sign of a lower station. She saw it as the mark of a man who could hold the world together with his bare hands. While Leo was being questioned, Isabella was on her phone, her voice sharp with urgency. I want to know everything about a passenger named Leo Martinez. Everything. I don't care what it takes. The report came back within the hour, and as she read it on her tablet in the sterile quiet of a private airport lounge, Isabella felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Leo Ghost Martinez. The name was legendary in certain circles. A former Top Gun test pilot for an experimental U.S. Air Force program. Decorated for valor, renowned for an almost supernatural ability to push an aircraft beyond its known limits. His career had ended abruptly, shrouded in controversy. A crash during a test flight of the X-27 Peregrine, a fighter jet whose revolutionary fly-by-wire flight control system was designed and manufactured by her company, Vance Aerospace. The official report cited pilot error. Martinez had claimed a catastrophic system failure, a digital ghost in the machine that sent the plane into an unrecoverable spin. He was discharged, his testimony dismissed. He was publicly disgraced. The lead engineer who signed off on that very flight system, who vehemently defended its integrity and blamed Martinez, was Marcus Thorne, Isabella's executive vice president and, until a year ago, her fiancé. The pieces of a puzzle she never knew existed began to snap into place, forming a picture of profound betrayal. She found Leo sitting quietly with Maya in the main terminal, away from the lingering news crews. He was no longer a pilot, just a father, patiently explaining to his daughter why their trip was cut short. Isabella approached, her usual armor of arrogance completely gone. She started to offer him money, a reward, the only language of gratitude she knew. I want to thank you. My company would like to offer you a substantial. Leo cut her off, his voice gentle but firm. I don't want your money. He nodded toward his daughter, who was now fast asleep on his lap. Her being safe is the only reward I need. Isabella fell silent, humbled. Maya stirred, her small hand opening. In it was the crayon drawing. She held it out sleepily toward Isabella. This is Daddy and his friend, Mr. Dave, she mumbled. Mr. Dave is an angel now. His plane broke. The simple, devastating words from a child did what no corporate battle ever could. They shattered Isabella's composure. She saw the man before her not as a curiosity or a hero, but as a victim of a deep injustice perpetrated by her own company. The X-27, she said, her voice barely a whisper. The crash. I think you were telling the truth. And I think the man responsible is about to destroy my company. She explained her suspicions about Marcus Thorne. How he was pushing the board to approve the sale of a new, fully automated commercial flight system, a direct descendant of the one in the X-27, to a global consortium. The data looked perfect, the projections were astronomical, but her gut told her something was wrong. Marcus was too eager, too confident. He's hiding something, and I think you're the only person alive who knows what it feels like. Leo listened, his expression unreadable. The past he had buried was being exhumed. For years, he had accepted his fate, focusing only on Maya. But the ghost of his friend, Dave, had never truly left him. "What do you need from me?" he asked, his voice low. "I need a pilot," Isabella said. "I need the ghost." Their alliance was forged in secret. Isabella gave Leo access to Vance Aerospace's most advanced flight simulators, deep in the company's R&D facility. Working late at night, Leo began to fly the new system. On the surface, it was flawless. But he wasn't testing for perfection. He was hunting for a ghost. He pushed the simulated jets through brutal, unorthodox maneuvers, the kind no commercial pilot would ever attempt, the kind that had preceded his own crash. "It feels the same," he told Isabella after one grueling session. "There's a lag in the microcorrections under extreme G-load. It's almost imperceptible, but it's there." He's using some kind of data buffer to mask the flaw during standard tests. Meanwhile, Marcus grew suspicious of Isabella's sudden interest in the flight systems. He used his influence to lock her out of key project files and began subtly turning board members against her, painting her as unstable and overly cautious. He framed her reliance on a disgraced mechanic as proof of her failing judgment. They were running out of time. The board meeting to approve the sale was in less than a week. If Marcus's system was approved and it failed in a real-world scenario, the loss of life would be catastrophic and Vance Aerospace would be finished. Marcus would be there to buy the smoking ruins for pennies on the dollar. "He knows we're looking," Isabella said, pacing the simulator room. "We need concrete proof, something he can't deny." Leo stared at the simulator's data stream, a waterfall of green code. He remembered the last moments of his flight with Dave. The frantic warnings, the controls that wouldn't respond. An idea, desperate and dangerous, began to form. "The flaw isn't just a bug," Leo said slowly. "It's a backdoor, a deliberate one. He needs it to be perfect during testing, but he also needs a way to trigger a failure if he wants to. He's not just selling a product. He's selling a weapon he can control." He outlined a plan. A final, public test. It was their only shot. The day of the board meeting arrived. The room was cold and imposing, filled with stern-faced executives and military observers from the purchasing consortium. Marcus Thorne was at the height of his power, his presentation a masterful display of corporate theater. He presented flawless data, glowing testimonials from automated tests, and a vision of a future of aviation that was safer, more efficient, and immensely profitable. "The system is, to put it simply, perfect," he concluded with a smug smile. "The board is ready to vote," the chairman announced. But before he could call the question, Isabella stood up. "We are not," she said, her voice ringing with newfound conviction. "There is one final test." A murmur of confusion rippled through the room. Marcus sneered. "Isabella, we're past the testing phase. Your sentimental theatrics are becoming tiresome. This test will be live," she continued, ignoring him. The massive screen behind the podium, which had been showing profit projections, flickered to life. It showed the interior of a flight simulator. In the pilot's seat sat Leo Martinez. Marcus's face went pale. "What is this? This is a farce. That man is a disgraced mechanic." "That man," Isabella countered, her voice like ice, "is the only pilot who has ever survived your system." Leo's voice, calm and steady, came through the room's speakers. "Marcus, it's been a long time. I believe you called my last flight pilot error. Let's see if I've improved." With the entire board and the consortium watching, Leo began the simulation. He didn't fly the plane gently. He flew it like a fighter jet, a ballet of impossible violence. He pushed the aircraft into a high-speed vertical climb, rolled it, and then cut the power, forcing it into a controlled stall. These were the exact, brutal conditions of his crash. On the data stream projected next to the video feed, a single line of malicious code, hidden deep within the system's architecture, activated. The buffer that had hidden the flaw overloaded. The controls on the screen froze. The simulated aircraft entered a flat spin, plummeting toward the virtual ground. The ghost was real. It was there for everyone to see. "The system is compromised," Leo stated calmly from the simulator. "And there's the man who wrote the code." All eyes turned to Marcus Thorne, whose face had collapsed into a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. His empire of lies had crumbled in less than 60 seconds. In the aftermath, Marcus was arrested, the deal was cancelled, and Vance Aerospace was saved from the brink. Leo Martinez was no longer a disgraced mechanic. He was a national hero, vindicated and celebrated. The military offered him a lucrative contract to head up a new flight safety commission. But it was Isabella who made him the most important offer. She found him in the R&D hangar, standing before a new prototype, his hands gently tracing its fuselage. "The government wants you," she said. "They'll give you a fancy title and a big office," he smiled faintly. "I'm not an office guy, I know," she replied. "That's why I'm not offering you an office. I'm offering you a partnership. Head of a new division, the Martinez Division, for flight integrity and innovation. No suit required. And your first priority, every day, will be picking Maya up from school." Leo looked at her, truly looked at the woman who had transformed from a cynical tycoon into a leader of principle. He saw the strength that had always been there, now tempered with a newfound humility and warmth. He saw a future. "On one condition," he said, "you have to co-chair. I fix the planes, you run the world." 6 months later, the hangar was filled with the bright, optimistic light of a new morning. Leo, Isabella, and Maya stood around a large table, looking over the blueprints for their first project, the Guardian, the safest passenger jet ever conceived. Isabella's manicured hand rested on the plans, next to Leo's, which still bore the faint, honorable stains of his life's work. Maya added a final touch to the blueprint with a red crayon. A small rocket ship in the corner, with 3 stick figures inside, all of them smiling, soaring together toward a limitless sky. Have you ever been underestimated, judged by your appearance instead of your character? How many hidden geniuses walk among us, their incredible talents masked by humble circumstances? The world may value polished surfaces and impressive titles, but true worth lies in integrity, courage, and the quiet strength it takes to fix what is broken. Share this story if you believe that the best of us are not always found in the boardroom, but sometimes in the heart of a loving father with grease on his hands.